Juanita, are you there?
Hey, this is Shatik.
Hey, Shatik. When we get started, why don't we just put the agenda up on the shared screen?
Sure, no problem.
And when we go on through the introductions, I'll do a quick, run through of what the agenda would be. And then folks would introduce themselves.
So you want me to put the agenda up before you start talking, or?
No, I'll introduce it and just ask that you put the agenda up.
All right.
I just wanted you to be prepared for that. And also, I've already spoken with Juanita about sharing the screen with some documents from Esplanade Gardens, those two pieces.
Right.
And hey, Shauna.
Hey, Charles, how are you and everyone else?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Craig, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Seta?
Seta.
Seta. And you're here on behalf of?
Jericho Project.
Okay. So thanks for everyone for joining early. We're just going to probably wait until others join, and we'll get started. And Craig, you're just giving us some updates on Jericho, correct?
We're going to introduce a project tonight.
Oh, it's a new project.
That's right.
Okay. So Shatik. So we'll probably cover that under new business when we get there, to that section, because I wasn't advised. I'm aware of the fact that you've been interfacing with our district office, but I was not aware that you needed to do a presentation this evening.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just hear from you. When we get to new business, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, Charles, the Facebook Live is set up.
Okay, thank you, Shatik.
Yeah.
So we're going to give this, thank you all for being on. I'm jumping back and forth from my screen to my name. We're going to probably give it about 5 minutes, and then we're going to get started. Delcina, how are you? You're muted.
Oh, good, thank you. How are you? I'll tell you how I am. I was on the voting line at like 6:45 this morning. I'm exhausted.
And thank you for your service. So I see a couple of folks that are on the call with telephone numbers. So do you want to just say who you are? I think I see a 19173, so we can give you a caption. Shatik?
Yeah, I don't see, give me 1 second. 1973. I don't know who that is.
We can ask to unmute.
Let's see.
It's Avery Seavey joining, but I think you see me.
I do see you, Avery. Thank you for joining.
Oh, I see 19173. There's a man there waving his hand. I got it.
Yeah, are you one of the residents of 95 Lennox or?
I'm a resident of Esplanade Gardens.
Oh, Esplanade Gardens, welcome, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we knew everyone who was on the, who's on the call, who I see a Galaxy Note 8. Can you identify who you are? They may not be hearing. Craig, just before we get started, have you sent us something on the new project that you're looking to present for tonight? Do we have anything?
I haven't. I can send it right now. I was going to share my screen if that's okay, or if that's possible.
Okay, so we're not gonna, I try to manage these meetings, with time sensitivity. So unless there's some absolute necessity to do a full presentation tonight, I don't mind you sharing the screen, but I'm gonna ask you to keep it brief.
Sure, no
Relatively
problem.
brief. And, give us an opportunity then to have conversations with you, following, even this evening. Okay, so it is 6:34. I see a number of others have joined. I want to thank each and every one of you for actually getting on this call in a very, very timely fashion. My name is Charles Powell. I'm the chair of the Housing Committee, Manhattan Community Board 10, and just want to welcome each of you. Shatik, I have a list of board members that I'm going to be checking off. I see that, Delcenia Glover, is in attendance from my committee, our committee, and I don't really see any other housing committee board members, although I see Karen Dixon has joined us from the board, and there may be others who have joined. So welcome to everyone. And Shatik, now just so that I can review it real quick, share the screen for the agenda. So for those who have not had the opportunity to receive one as board members, we can, just have them, see it. So as you can see, the agenda is the welcome by myself, which I've done. I've introduced the only housing committee member that I see on the screen, and that is Delcenia Glover, who's also a member of our land use committee. I see Karen Dixon, who is the chair of our land use committee, who I'm very happy that Karen is joining us tonight. And we'll introduce other board members as they, appear on the call. So we're gonna move right to comments by elected officials. So let me just explain what that is. As our housing committee continues to progress and identify issues that we should be very proactive about, or at least aware of, and taking some interest in, or taking some action on behalf of, I thought it was a good idea to have some of our representatives of elected officials to join the call for some brief comments to offer guidance. Later on in the meeting, you're going to hear from Delcenia Glover as to the work that Community Board 10 is doing on district needs, which will help also give our elected officials some feedback from us on things that we've been addressing, especially on housing and also on land use and economic development. So without further ado, I believe Shatik, and by the way, presentations, as you can see, we have Avery Seavey and Lisa Harris from the 95 Lenox Avenue, development. Lisa is the president of the Tennis Association, and Mr. Seavey is the owner. We already talked about the district needs statement. We're very happy that we're going to be talking about the Esplanade Gardens, Tennis Association's concerns about maintenance increase. And then we're going to have a conversation about a brief one, just identifying some future subjects and topics under NYCHA. And then we've also heard under new business, we're going to hear from the Jericho Project on a new project that they'll be presenting. So Shatik, you can take this off the screen for now. Okay, so I'm going to call upon, I see Shauna Harmongoff from the Office of State Senator Brian Benjamin, and happy that you've joined us for some remarks.
Thank you so much, Charles, and hi, everyone. So I'm Shauna Harmongoff, representing New York State Senator Brian Benjamin's office. Our office, we're still working remotely, but you can still call our office at 212-222-7315 and leave a message, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours with any constituent issues or any requests that you may have. We still have a bunch of masks, and we have a few hand sanitizers. So if you're in need of that, please reach out to me and I'll put my contact information in the chat. Also this summer, Senator Benjamin conducted a COVID rent relief forum for HCR that we did. And we had helped people pretty much apply for, or give them the requirements for applying for this rent relief program. And so far we had about 2 or 3 people reach back to us and said they were approved for it. So that's that. And I'll be here, Charles, for the remainder of the call. So if anybody has any issues or concerns about the Esplanade issues, I'll be on.
So for Dell Senior, and just want to introduce Donna Gill, my vice chair of the House Committee has joined the call. Donna, Dell Senior, I've asked Shauna, and I know we're going to hear from Mina White from Assemblyman Al Taylor's office, whether or not between now and next meeting, we can get some data relating to the number of persons who have applied for that relief and the number of individuals who have been approved, so that we can have a better understanding as to how that's functioning. My, experience has been, Shauna, that folks have said they've yet to hear. So I'd like to hear, from anyone else as this meeting progresses as to whether there are any other comments. But we will have that on our agenda for our November meeting, and expect to get your help in identifying some data and some statistics as to just how beneficial that program has been in providing much needed rent relief for residents. So thank you, Shauna, and I'm glad that you're going to stay, because we want you and others to be part of this Esplanade Gardens conversation.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure we get the numbers for you too, like you requested.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I see Mina White from the Office of Assemblyman Al Taylor. Mina, do you want to say anything to us before, as we continue this, this agenda? Is Mina there? I see you, but I think you're, Shatik, I think she is, oh, now I think.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Mina, thank you.
Okay, sorry, Mina White again from Assemblyman Taylor's office. Clearly I'm still here in the office. We are operating in person. We do have a limited schedule, but we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Just to speak briefly regarding the Esplanade Gardens increase, is that, and I'm sorry for the music, we got some folks out there, just speak briefly about the increase. HPD's commissioner, Ms. Louise Carroll, did reach out to the assembly member regarding the increase in Esplanade, because originally that was alerted to the shareholders as well as the elected officials. This was supposed to happen last year, I believe, and it's only now taking into effect. So, it was very short notice. Folks were reaching out to our office because of, that fear and just like, what do you mean it's going to happen in 30 days or less than 30 days. So we reached out to HPD, the HPD commissioner reached out to us just to discuss, what the assembly member to discuss, what would better outreach look like because of, this was a short notice. Originally, they were going to reach out to Esplanade Gardens and ensuring, that they are going to have staff there to complete, SCREE forms, SCREE applications and Section 8 applications towards the end of October, but we pushed them to, make sure that they're ramping up outreach prior to that, which is why they started reaching out last week. I did get some data from HB on how many people they did outreach to. So they've been in Esplanade from 10:15 to 10:17. They were also there from 10:19 to 10:24. They received in total 168 applications. The majority are SCREE, and then the others are Section 8.
So Mina, let me just have you pause for a moment because I just want to make sure that everyone on the call knows, because we do have that as an agenda item. So
Okay. I was like,
helpful information, but I think everyone needs to hear, context,
Okay.
as to why this is on our agenda and what in fact this housing committee and our district office has been asked to achieve. So I'm going to just ask that you hold that, and when we get to that item on the agenda, I will reintroduce it and then ask you to come back as Shauna, as well with that information. But before we do that, I see that we have a representative from the Office of our Public Advocate, Jamani Williams. Ivy.
Yes, my name is Evie Bien-Aimé, and I'm the community organizer for Housing Equity. Delcinia is my manager. She's on the line, so I came also this evening in order to participate and listen.
Okay, well, great. I want to make sure that something's echoing. I don't know what's happening. Is that on my end or Ivy's on end? So Ivy, Delcinia, obviously, is a valued member, of your team, but also an incredibly valued member of our team. So, we'll be hearing from her a little later, and Delcinia always gives us guidance as to what we need to hear from of the public advocate. So let's get right to it. For those of you who know me, I like to get through agendas, so I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity for persons, relating to 95 Lenox Avenue development. We have the president of the Tenants Association, Lisa Harris. So Lisa, I'm sure you'll weigh in on this. And then we have the representative from the CV organization, Avery Seavey, as owner. Since our last meeting, it was raised, as you know, there was a notification that was given to each of the residents regarding some, requested increases in the maximum rents that could be charged within the development. Shatik Mitchell has done a really, really good job of doing some investigating with Lisa Harris and was able to get a call between myself, himself, and Mr. Seavey. And the concerns, of course, by the residents was whether or not, since this is a completely, I think I'm correct, Lisa and Avery, in saying this is a 100% Section 8 building. All of the residents of Section 8. So the concern was whether or not there would be any increases in portions of the rent that Section 8 residents will have to pay. And then there's a second item that we're hoping you can address, because you presented to us previously, regarding some development plans for 95 Lenox and some other buildings, but most importantly, a complete, internal renovation of kitchens and bathrooms. And there was a concern as to whether or not this letter that they received from HUD had anything to do with any of that. So Lisa, I'm going to start with you before Mr. Seavey speaks to see if there's anything that I did not cover that express your concern to this committee. You can unmute yourself, or Shatik, you can unmute Lisa Harris.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The other concern was the problem with, of the tenants also haven't gotten their leases signed since July.
Okay, I thank you. And that was Mr. Seavey, that was the third, item. So talk to us a little bit about this notice that the tenants received from HUD relating to, some efforts on your behalf and the reasons for that, for, increases in the maximum rents for the units there at 95 Lenox. We can then talk about the renovations and the third item, the lease renewal scenario.
Okay, thank you, Charles, Ms. Harris, and everyone else who's in attendance. Let me see where to begin. There is a rent increase afoot with HUD. The rent increase will allow us, in fact, requires us, and I think, Charles, this is responsive, to make improvements to apartments, specifically kitchens and bathrooms. And as I said to Charles, Robert Horsford Apex, a local company, a fellow I know for many years, is going to do the work. We're not going to begin the work until we have an approved contract from HUD, which, as we can all imagine, is with COVID plaguing us, HUD is taking a while to review and approve. Once the contract is approved, we will begin the process of beginning. And what do I mean by that? Folks are going to continue to live in their apartments. Robert's company has done this before. We will, CV and Horsford will work with folks in the apartments to make it feasible for folks to continue to live and for Robert to do his work. Charles, did that respond to your initial question, Charles? I'm looking for where you are.
Well, I think the initial question was, and that was helpful to explain, but the initial question is, how does that impact the current rental status or rental payments of the residents?
Good. I forgot. And I had promised Charles and Shadiq, and I failed to do it. I will make good on the promise to send a letter explaining. The letter will explain the following. The rules that exist today will continue to exist. That is to say, folks will pay 30% of their income, period. If the rents increase, which again, I'm hoping they do, those increases will come on top of whatever a given tenant pays based upon their 30%. And the federal government will be will pay that differential. That's the rule today. That will be the rule in the future. So if a person continues to keep the job or the source of income they have today, and that income doesn't change, their rent will not change. That is to say, the rent out of their pocket will not change, but the building will collect more from the government.
And the purpose of those collections is to fulfill that you did a physical needs assessment in all of the units. And is that to fulfill the upgrades to kitchens and bathrooms that I believe the tenants are very desirous of?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, so let's go just to the third point. Then I'm going to open it up to committee members and board members and community with any further questions. Lisa Harrison mentioned a concern about lease renewals. Can you comment on that?
Yes, Ms. Harris, I feel very bad about that. I have to say, I don't believe in saying it's not my problem, not my job, but the truth is that's not something I am directly familiar with. Now that, and I think Charles had called my attention to this also. Now that you've called my attention to this, I'm going to call my sister. I'm not going to yell at her, but I'm going to ask her what on earth is happening. And if you want, Ms. Harris, if you chat with me or something, give me your phone number, I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
But my explanation would be, which is the obvious one, COVID has made life very problematic in all sorts of ways for people, all sorts of ways, including administrative ways, which is least important, but you ask, and so that's my answer. But if you can chat with me or someone can email me, I will call you tomorrow with an answer.
And Shadiq and I will follow up with you on that as well. You can understand, just the timing of that. you know, when folks are not getting lease renewals and they see a letter from HUD to say that you're looking to, you know, get overall increases and the maximum rents to be charged, then you can understand what, you know, happens with them. You know, the fear that this is going to represent some kind of displacement.
I
or this
understand.
is gonna
I
represent-
understand. I've been in this business a bit. I know people have fears, often justified, sometimes not justified. So I get it. And we're going to rectify this. Simple as
Okay.
that.
Let me, before we go to our committee members, to welcome Housing Committee Member Terry Wisdom, you know, who's joined us, and also Housing Committee Member Mary Moss, who's joined.
Okay. Thank you so
You know,
much. Thank you
so
so much.
we can get
Apologies for the
to
lateness.
then questions. So I'm going to open it up. I mean, everybody understands that this is not something where, you know, our housing committee or our district office is being asked for a position, but certainly being asked for our assistance. I appreciate, you know, the fact that we've had Mr. Seavey, who asked to be on this call this evening, you know, to come and offer some explanations. So let me just see if any of our committee members first, or board members, and then community, have any questions or concerns they'd like to express at this time. So we're good?
Ms. Harris, are you going to email me or chat or chat with me your phone number?
Yes, I will.
Okay, please. Thanks.
Lisa, are you able to put the number into the chat, or do you want me to put it for you?
You can put it in for me.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Charles.
Avery, let me go ahead, as soon as I find where my phone is, I'll put it into the chat.
Good.
So moving right along, we can then now turn to, I'd like to have Delphina Glover, you know, give us a presentation on the great
Charles, I
work.
have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Is that,
My hand is raised.
oh,
Okay.
Donna, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Good night, Ms. TV. I'm happy to have you on the call. I spoke to Lisa and I was privy to the letter. And it seems to me that the amounts that are of the increase is a substantial amount. I understand that the tenants are not going to have to pay that amount, and most of that money is going to be coming from Section 8. However, going forward with a
It doesn't say that.
two-bedroom,
Yeah.
$4,000 a month rent, if Section 8 is not going to pay, if per se the person gets off of Section 8, there's no way that these people are going to be able to afford that amount of rent. So I need to know those rental increases. I need a breakdown if that is what HUD has suggested or if that is what is allowed, because it seems to me that for 95 Lenox, that's an awful lot of money to be paying, even if the tenants should not have to worry, because if their income does not change, the amount that they're paying is not increased. However, the amount that the federal government is paying is increased substantially. So that is my concern. And I would like to get a detailed breakdown of how you came to these amounts. Because I'm thinking when Lisa is no longer there, I'm sorry, Lisa, I don't mean to pick on you. As a tenant, to pay $4,000 a month for a two-bedroom apartment, that seems to me market rate.
Right.
So I'm concerned with that. And I know a lot of the tenants, though, you know, you have assured them that their rents will not be increased, but I'm thinking about the community and our people getting into those apartments at those prices, which seems to me to be exorbitant.
You know, I only sort of understand your question. My concern, I am concerned about the community for sure. My obligations are to the building. The building requires these rent increases to improve the building. I understand what you're saying. I guess another way of talking about it may be the word gentrification, which I do not think applies. But to improve the building, which we want to do, we need rent increases. It's as simple as that. It's really no more complicated.
Rent increases, yes. No one is saying it does not need rent increases to
It does not.
improve the building. We're just talking about the amounts. Where did you come up with those amounts? And could you give us a breakdown of,
These numbers were developed in connection with HUD,
okay.
in concert with HUD. This isn't something you can imagine. Even, and I'm going to say something, I hope it doesn't offend people, even with that madman Trump running the government still knows what it's doing, and they're not looking to squander money or to be wasteful. And we've developed this number in concert with HUD to price out what can be done to improve apartments.
Okay, I just wanted to get a breakdown. So if I can get something concrete or,
I'm not sure what you mean. What would the breakdown be?
well, the breakdown would be, I mean, if you're gonna fix my kitchen,
much
and
would it
it's gonna
cost?
cost, X number of dollars, my rent it should increase.
But your rent
course.
isn't. But the rent isn't increasing.
No, well,
No, I can't even see. I don't even see. Is it Donna Gill? Who's speaking? Donna Gill?
Yes, Gil.
Because I can't see. Yeah, no, look, I hear what you're saying, but there's a process. We followed the process. I've explained to the Councilman Perkins and to Charles and to anyone who's asked, and I'm now explaining to you, this is how the numbers are developed.
So Avery, in response to what I get, I think, what Lisa is referring to,
Donna.
I'm sorry, Donna is referring to, are we able to get, at any point, I'm sure the residents would like to know the value of the, of the work that's being done in the respective units. So I know you said that you were going with Apex and entering into an agreement on that. Maybe that information would be helpful. But
Yeah.
I do understand what you're saying. This is not, any sort of, of pass along, if I understand correctly, for whatever the level of improvements, it's not going to change. You said the formula, the tenants will still pay 30%. But Donna, you and I will talk further, and let's just see if there's any way we can frame the question and get it to Mr. Seaves to get more data and information about the value of the work being performed.
Okay, thanks, Charles.
So are there any other questions from board members?
Yeah, this is Terry Wisdom, and this is a very critical thing because a lot of buildings have done this improvements in the apartments. And in many, many instances, the improvements that have happened have been like really inflated. I'm not saying that you're going to do that, but $4,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, whether it's renovated or not, is even above market value. And this is a problem, and I get it. You're trying to, renovate, but I think that there should be like breakdowns and ceilings, because in many instances, whatever is being done to improve is a bit inflated, not a bit, but in some instances, a lot inflated, and the courts are filled with that. So I think that's something to look at. But in this environment in Harlem, making any apartments that are renovated where people actually have been living and have been in the community for many years, $4,000, I think it's outrageous. I think it's unconscionable, and I don't know who we can turn to. And I mean, I get it if you're trying to improve a building, but this is not right. And this is a part of what we're trying to
Ms. Wisdom, I'm
roll back.
confused. Ms. Wisdom, I'm confused. This is only a benefit to the tenants. It's a complete cost-free benefit to tenants. What would be the complaint?
Okay, am I missing something? Because, and obviously I came in a little bit late, but you said something about, it's $4,000, it's gonna be $4,000 and,
Well, I'll
Even
re-
if
I'll
the-
repeat it. Maybe you did miss.
okay,
Today, a Section 8 tenant pays 30% of his or her income. That is the rule. It's a rule that we've all known since time immemorial. That will continue to be the rule. The additional rent we're asking in order to improve the apartments comes from the federal government. We are not asking people. It would be the last thing we want to do, to ask people to give us more money. If a person's income remains the same, their rent will remain the same. You know what? If their income goes down, their rent will go down. The differential comes from the government. And as I said earlier, maybe you missed it, the government, as crazy as the government is in so many ways, they're not giving away money until they get value.
okay.
Okay,
So
Mr.
if they're
Excuse me.
gone, if they're off Section 8 altogether, because that was the question, then what happens to them? What happens?
The only reason a person would be off Section 8 is if they don't certify their income.
Yeah, but maybe their income changes. That does happen to people. What happens if their income changes? You know,
Is it-
if they're working and they, you know, like
And
X
no
out
longer
of
qual- and they no longer
Section 8.
and they no longer qualify for Section 8.
Right.
Right, that's a good
Yes.
question. I don't have the answer. I could only guess at the answer. I don't have an answer, but I'll share that
Okay.
with Charles and he can share that. I
Okay,
understand the
are
question.
other people's rent gonna go up too, or it's just the Section 8?
It's 100, the building is
It's
100.
100% Section
Oh,
8
okay,
building.
okay, okay. So that's a
Right.
that's a
You
different
ask a
story,
very
but
good
it,
question. I can only guess. I'd rather not guess, and I will find out and tell Charles.
yeah, because that's critical, because that means like if someone, you know, like gets out of Section 8 and
I
they
know, I
have a
get it.
job, but their job can't pay $4,000, then what are they gonna do?
Understood 1,000%. I get that.
I have a question, just so I understand it. If a tenant moves, if someone vacates the apartment, are the new tenants only going to be Section 8
Yes.
recipients
Yes.
or?
The answer is yeah.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add, now I don't know, I'm willing to guess at this, but I think the guess is right. We have Article 5, which is a tax benefit from the city of New York. My guess is that we can't charge a non-Section 8 tenant more than some measure. I know that's a little vague, but I'll repeat it. We're bound by a variety of rules that are imposed by the city. For example, to take only folks who qualify for Section 8. That does not answer the question of what happens when the person who's arrived in the building makes more. But my guesstimate is, even if I were a slob and a dreadful human being and wanted to charge people more, my suspicion is that my covenants with the city do not permit that. But that part is a guess, and I will confirm it with Charles.
So Avery, I believe that your building is project-based Section 8.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's continuity, you know, from one, you know, resident to the other. I think that's what you're referring to in terms of your agreements versus, you know, that once a Section 8 tenant leaves in other situations, you know, they leave with their Section 8 benefits to go, you know, elsewhere.
100%. It is project-based.
It is project-based. So
Exactly.
I just want folks to know the distinction between a project-based Section 8, which is 95 Lenox Avenue, which means, Karen, that apartment will still stay Section 8 regulated. You know, even if that tenant becomes ineligible, another tenant would come in to be eligible because this is 100% project-based Section 8 development.
Yeah,
I think that's part of the distinction between what happens sometimes in other rent stabilized scenarios where you will have tenants who will bring their Section 8 eligibility to the, you know, to the particular, you know, project, but not necessarily have that unit,
Right.
you know, Section 8
Okay,
project.
Charles.
Okay,
All right.
hello, can I
Okay,
say
I
something?
heard that. Can I just say one more thing? This is Donna Gill. How long is the project base? What are the dates and when does it end?
I think
Does
we
it
have-
sunset?
I think we have to enter into a I'll tell you a couple of things. The legality of it is I think we're entering into a 20-year contract to get the new rents. That's number one. Number two, this building can't operate with, to be candid, without Section 8 assistance. But again, legally, it's a 20-year contract from here on out. There'll be a new contract. And we have no reason to run it other than as a Section 8 building. It works for me, to be honest, financially, and we're happy to contribute whatever it is to the community.
And well, it works now, Mr. Severs, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your saying that. But 20 years from now, it may not work. So are you going to sign a new contract for 20 more years? You see, I would think that if that's the case, it should go into perpetuity or for a 99-year lease or a 99-year project lease, because I would feel more comfortable knowing that it goes, because 10 years has just gone by and nobody even realized that 10 years has gone by. So 20 years is not a very long time.
Yep.
So that's my concern with when the time is up, what happens to these $4,000 apartments or these people that are on Section 8?
Well, I think, Donna,
that's my
what we need to do is just stay vigilant and make sure that when we have, Lisa may not be there, but let's just, say none of us will probably be on a community board, 20 years from now. I know I won't. But at the same time, I think your point is noted, and that's a different conversation. Maybe we can talk to our elected officials about conversations with, HPD in the city of New York and their negotiations with the federal government as to some of these things becoming in perpetuity versus from term to term in terms of those project-based vouchers. But unless there's any other pertinent questions,
Yes,
Mrs.
Charles,
Seavey,
this is Mari Moss. I have one quick question. I just want to know, is the building completely filled, like 100% filled as of right now? Or are there units that are available
Lisa?
right now?
It's not 100% full, but there it's still the question of signing of leases. So
But do you have, she's asking if you have vacancies,
yes,
in the building right now.
We do, but I don't know the number right now, but that still goes back to, there's a lot of tenants in here that their leases are not signed.
Ms. Harris, let me say it
Okay.
again. Ms. Harris, let me say this again, that whether it was COVID or an oversight, we will get you the leases. I can guarantee you, and Charles, I would like to think he can guarantee that we will get leases.
I will stay on top of that with Shatik Mitchell. And also I did send you Lisa Harris's number in the chat. So hopefully you have that, Avery.
I'll
I
call
just
her
sent
tomorrow.
it
As
just
far as
to you.
Ms. Moss's question, I don't have the answer. It's in the owner's interest to continue to keep the building rented. So we can get back to you. I can share with Charles or Ms. Harris the exact number. I don't know the answer, but it's within our interest, as you can imagine, to keep the building rented.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to move the agenda, as I know a couple of folks who are part of this Esplanade Gardens conversation have some time considerations. So I'm going to move to the Esplanade Gardens maintenance question. Del Senior, I know you asked, when we were going to get to that. And I also know that, is Mina White still, with us?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, so Mina, you had started talking about something, but let me just give a little bit of a background and context as to how this got to our agenda. We received from a resident of Esplanade Gardens, Shatik did, who shared it with me, an expression of concern regarding the fact that they got a notification very recently. And Shatik, I believe you are able now to share the screen. I had asked that notification, and then Mina, for you and Shauna, you both received some fact sheets, relating to conversations with Commissioner Carroll. Shatik, do you want to put up the notification to the residents, of that development? That's the fact sheet, Shatik. It's that letter that we would, that I believe that the resident shared with us.
All right, give me 1 second.
While we're waiting on that sheet to come up, may I please ask a question? Just general information. Are all of the buildings in Esplanade Gardens considered Section 8 project based, or is it just specific buildings?
They're Mitchell-Lama co-ops.
I do not believe that they are similar to 95 Lennox. I'll defer to Delcinia on that. I believe that these are.
So it's a
these
Mitchell.
are-
No, they're
not.
It's Mitchell-Lama.
No, they're not.
Yes, Mitchell.
No, they're not. It's Mitchell-Lama
so-
Yes,
Co-op.
Mitchell-Lama co-op.
So we'll get to that because there is an aspect of that that reflects an effort now, and you'll see that in some of the next document that comes up. So this is what we received. We received, you know, a notice that came on October the 1st from the Board of Directors to the Esplanade shareholders, and in that it actually indicates, you know, that you know, commencing, you know, just to summarize, you know, this letter, you know, that there would be a 17% increase in year one, scheduled to commence on November 1st, 2020, you know, and that, you know, would then be an additional, you know, series of increases over the next, you know, three, you know, over the, in 17% in year one, 8% in year two, and 5% in year three. But the 17% would go into effect on November the 1st. So a tenant sent that to us. We indicated that we would, you know, look into it and put it on this particular meeting agenda. So I know that there are representatives of Esplanade Gardens, and we'll hear from you. But Shatik, can you put up the other fact sheet, which I then want to go to Mina White, because I think that, Mina, that's what you were referring to when you started your presentation a little earlier as to what was sent to you from HPD Commissioner Louise Carroll. So Shatik, can you put that other one up that you had, the fact sheet, the one you had up first?
And Charles, the fact sheet that Shatik had put up first was the fact sheet that Senator Benjamin's office got from HPD Commissioner Carroll.
Correct. And I think I heard, you know,
Mina mentioned
Mina
that too.
referred to the same thing. So as
Okay.
you can see that this, you know, talks about some of the same thing the letters reflected. It talks about some of the reasons why, you know, this particular increase is moving forward. And it also then talks about what, you know, why is the maintenance increasing now? How much will I have to pay? What if I can't afford this maintenance increase? And it then refers to SCREE, which we heard Mina referred to in terms of people who have applied for it. And then Section 8 rental housing assistance. So I thought it would just be a good idea to have Esplanade Gardens on and representatives from Brian Benjamin's office and Assemblyman Al Taylor to just talk about this issue. So I'm going to open it back up to you, Mina, to continue with what you started with earlier. And if you want to keep this on the screen, or you or Shauna, we can do so.
Hello, hi. So just like I was mentioning earlier, the Assembly member did have a conversation with HPD Commissioner Carroll. Again, this increase was supposed to take place last year, and it's only taking place now. And you know, I believe that first letter was sent out to shareholders on October 1st. So literally like a 30-day notice. So again, our office received calls. HPD did originally plan to reach out towards the end of October, but our office did push that. They reached out to shareholders sooner because we were getting calls and we knew that was going to be, a big, scare, reasonably so. So in speaking to the intergovernmental team at HPD, they've been outreaching since October 15th. And they've been in Esplanade for about 9 days now. And they got about 168 applications thus far. Our office, I know, I don't have the exact numbers, but we've definitely done over like 10 applications for SCREE. Again, we are in person on a limited schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. to 4. But yeah, that's all that I have so far. But I'll be on this call.
Shauna, do you want to add anything to that? Because it was actually your document that we're
Yes,
using.
so Senator Benjamin was in conversation with Commissioner Carroll. I was on that call too, and she provided us with the documentation that you're looking at now. I think the biggest thing is because we were supposed to get the increase last year, but a lot of the issues that we've been seeing, and I live in Esplanade too, is that a lot of the shareholders' complaint is that it's COVID time now, and does the maintenance increase have to take place starting November the 1st? Can it be pushed back? So I think that was something that we were trying or in discussion to see if that's something that maybe can be done, because a lot of people have lost their jobs and are trying to figure out where money is going to come from. So this increase right now seems to be, a lot of people have issues with the rent increase going right now. We do know that the rent increase needs to take place. However, at this point in time, the rent increase maybe should be held off. So that's where we are trying to see how things can be worked out regarding that.
Okay, thank you. Shatik, you can unshare the screen and then we can then go to board members for any comments or questions, and then to the community. And we certainly want to hear from representatives of, Esplanade Gardens. Has anyone raised their hand? Donna, I see you unmuted. Do you have a comment? But we're going to go to board members first, and then Ms. Reddick will come to you. So any board members, Delcenia,
Don hand is raised.
sorry? All right, go ahead. And then Mari Moss after you.
Okay, so my question is, Section 8 and SCREE are rental subsidies from the federal government. These people in Mitchell Lamas are homeowners because that's a co-op. So how did the city or the HPD able to finagle the federal guidelines to include these people? And when someone figures out that something's wrong or something is amiss, and it changes back, what happens to these individuals? That's my question.
May I speak? May I speak? I am a community person. I live in Esplanade. My name is Millicent. First of all, Donna, we are not homeowners. We only own the shares of stock attached to our unit. We must live in the unit in order to be a shareholder. Mitchell Lamas were built for low to middle income individuals. So we were never homeowners. We were always shareholders with the agreements that we would have to occupy the unit in order to be involved in this process. We were probably the first or the only totally 100% African-American shareholders back in 1967 and 68. So that's a little of our history. Moving forward, we in May of 2018 had the first hearing ever held by HPD around this potential increase. In doing so, it was based upon the fact that the failure of HPD with all Mitchell Lamas throughout the city not having done their job, that is to maintain our units in a way where it would become livable, it is now astronomical to repair. Having said that, my concern are a few things. One, The capital improvement project is indeed needed. There's no question about the need for the work. What is my concern is that the capital improvement work has not even started on half of these 6 buildings. There's 1,872 units here. Maybe 600 of them are close to completion. In the process, I must state that our units are being destroyed in this process. That's a whole nother discussion. We at that time said to HPD, how is it before the work is being done that you will impose an increase on us? Capital improvement generally means how do I want to say, not a mortgage loan, but a construction loan. And construction loans are never converted to mortgages until after all work has been done. Having said that, we know it would be 3 to 5 years before the work would be done. A punch list needs to be created. A walkthrough must be created. And a C of O must be obtained. Once all that is done, then you would convert to a mortgage. We are nowhere near that. Having that in case and the work not being done, there are other mortgages that are being held by us, but Shauna and others, Shauna, you can respond to this as members of the board. What my concern is, how is it the board never applied for PPE monies during this period of time of COVID when units down on Avenue D and 80th Street and other places have indeed applied for these monies in order to maintain the facility? We also need to understand, why is this progressive? Because this is more than 30%. When you take 17% based upon the maintenance and the utilities, and you put 17% on that, and then come back a year later, you then add 8% on the new rate, okay? And then you add 5%. It then becomes a 33% increase. So it's never truly a 30%. 65% of us are senior citizens. Many of them who have worked are above the SCREE level and cannot obtain Section 8. Those are our concerns. And the last concern that I have is that when you apply Section 8 to these types of development, and more Section 8 becomes available, we lose our status as a Mitchell-Lama co-op. We will no longer be a Mitchell-Lama co-op. So it is as though while we were here, I've been here 53 years. Well, we've been here when no one else wanted to be in this community, and we made this a viable community, and we have watched HPD to this very day fail to do its job, including not providing us with a 30-day notice. We were not given 30 days. We were given roughly 27 or 26 days notice in advance. So how do you impose this before the work is completed? How do you impose this during COVID? And how do you impose this when we look at Midtown and downtown, where people's rents are going up? Well, RSA and them are losing money because they can't rent up these units. Yet up in Harlem, you want to give us market rates when you know downtown they have to reduce the market rates for the mere fact that many people are saying, hey, I'm gonna work from home. I don't need that apartment. So you're losing rents everywhere. It's as though at the other end, below 96th Street, you're losing rent. But above 96th Street, you want to impose us to take care of the needs of where those realtors have lost money at the lower end of the town and coming up this end. Last thing I want to say to everybody is that Gary Sloman is no longer there. Therefore, we have no idea who will be coming in. And when you look at 2 to 11 conversion, which they started this in Brooklyn, this is not in our best interest, period.
So, Ms. Reddick, thank you so much for that. Before we go back to either Shauna or Mina, I see Mari Moss, you have your hand raised. And then I have a couple of questions. So Mari?
Ms. Reddick, that was amazing. Thank you for that entire breakdown and historical knowledge background of this entire situation. My question, you really touched upon what my question was going to be, which is why do these capital improvements have to come from increases from the co-op shareholders? I don't understand why there aren't government subsidies that are available when there are capital, and maybe Shauna can answer this, there are capital dollars that are available for capital improvements on buildings, and developers get those subsidies all the time. So why couldn't those apply to Esplanade Gardens? And then my second question goes to my bigger concern, longer term, which Donna Gill brought up earlier in the previous discussion, is the number of apartments which are basically empty. You know, I know Esplanade has a number of apartments that have been empty for years. There's a wait list. but
Over
then there's-
55 units are presently empty, which means that's a sign of warehousing.
Right. Yeah, because so full disclosure, I live in Lenox Terrace, but my name came up. I did put in the HUD program to go to Esplanade, and my name came up. Now that's a whole nother story. I don't feel like getting into the process, which you well know. But I just want to know, I think we have to think long term, as Donna Gill was saying. We got to think 10, 20 years, even though we're, you know, some of us may not be on the board anymore, serve on the board and so forth. We have to think that way because we have to protect the future of Harlem, and we have to protect the future generations that will inhabit, because this is still a very good program for people to be able to live, you know, their lives. My aunt owns her co-op in Jackson Heights. You know, they paid for the whole building. So, you know, she doesn't have to pay anything but a maintenance fee, but that's not the case on a lot of other co-ops that are throughout the city. So again, number one, why are there any capital budget, are there subsidies available through the government that can cover this cost instead of imposing it upon the residents? And two, what can we do in regards to, you know, protecting the co-op situation going forward?
Thank you, Mari. You raised in one of your questions the same question that I had, which I had invited actually, and representatives from Bill Perkins' office to be on this call because that's city government and HPD is city government. I concur with you, Ms. Reddick. You did a great job of summarizing that. As Shauna indicated, you know, the concern would seem to be why now, especially. You know, I mean, given the fact that we're in the midst of COVID, and I certainly know as a housing developer myself, I know that Mari is correct, that there's all kinds of, you know, programs relating to capital. And I think you accurately summarized the fact that generally it is post-construction that things then convert into those long-term mortgage obligations that you have to then begin to start amortizing. So I guess my question for Ms. Reddick and others from Esplanade Gardens, and I see Del Senior, you are, you know, and I certainly want to hear your comments on this. What can Manhattan Community Board 10 do in support of you? I asked Shauna Harmongoff and Mina White to be on here because I want their representatives to hear our voices, hear your voices. What can we do now? I agree with Mari, I agree with Donna, that we all have to think long-term, but what can we do for you right now?
I would say the most significant thing, I would agree with Shauna, slow it down. I don't believe we should do this until the economy is in better shape. Right now, the economy is dead for most part. So it's senseless to bring about an increase when the majority of the people who have no jobs look like most of us in this Zoom conference, which means we'll become homeless if this absolutely happens. Now, I agree. I know myself and others do qualify for SCREE. But this is bigger than me. There are many people here who do not qualify for SCREE, DRE, or Section 8. And they've been shareholders and my neighbors for well over 30 plus. This is to me a format to displace us in a way that many of us are not even thinking about. And using Section 8 as one example, Section 8 is not in the best interest of most people who are in Mitchell-Lama co-ops or in co-ops, because in the long run, then, and let me just say this, even if I don't talk about the long run, what we do know is that Section 8 has the ability to cut back. And so what happens, this is not going to be building based, it's going to be individually based.
Right, right. That's
Therefore,
very important.
right, what is going to happen to these residents and what's going to happen to our co-op that was controlled for well over 50 years by African Americans? We're the only ones who are totally African, or were totally African American. And it's like, guys, you're not going to have this status much longer if we keep going at the rate we're going.
So Delcina, I saw that you had unmuted yourself. Do you have a comment?
No, I have a question. I don't need to add anything to what Ms. Reddick said. She broke it down, all of the details. She was preaching the truth. And I have nothing to add to that. My question is there anyone on this call who was a part of the conversation with HPD? Are there any board members, any of the Esplanade board members on this call?
Well, Shauna, you still a board member?
So I used to be a board member. I'm no longer a board member. When I was a part of the board, and thank you so much, Millicent, for that history. So Millicent came in years ago into Esplanade the same time my parents came into Esplanade. So they were one of the original people to move into Esplanade. So if anybody knows the history of Esplanade, it's definitely Millicent. So thank you so much for that history. So when we were a part of the board, they were supposed to, when I was a part of the board, we were supposed to only get an increase of no more than 25%. And so immediately once I got off the board, I'm seeing new things saying that it's now 30%. So I'm a little confused as to where the increase came about. And so, so I was on the board originally when we needed the increase because, like we said, we took out some loans and Esplanade needed capital improvement work. Now, like Millicent said, this could be slowed down, I think. And so I think we're just trying to figure out how this could still take place, the increase during COVID. So we're just trying to see if anything could be done so that way tenants aren't displaced from their apartments. And like, I'm not one of the ones who qualify for like SCREE because I'm not of age or DRE or Section 8. So, you know, there are people that fall, shareholders that fall into that line of we don't qualify for any of those things. So we're then trying to see how could this be at a standstill right now until this whole COVID thing has, you know, gone away.
So I see that we
I mean, that didn't really answer my question because I'm still concerned about the fact that none of the board members are in this call because they're the ones who made this deal with HPD. They're the ones who know what the capital improvement costs are, and we can't ask them those questions.
Well, Delcina, I'm sorry for interrupting. One of the questions I have had from the beginning of this process, even when we spoke with Gary Sloman, is as a shareholder, we are entitled to see the AIA. The AIA is indeed the budget that tells us about their spending, their drawdown. Charles, you understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
To date, we have not seen the AIA. The AIA is important because it allows us to understand actual spending and then waste. We also get an opportunity to see where change orders come in. And the biggest concern I have is that when you open a wall to do capital work, you have no idea what's going on behind them walls. Therefore, change orders and everything else can come along. Our apartments, by the plumber alone, our apartments are being destroyed. We have walls that are being left open for 15 and 20 days. We have asbestos issues. We have rat infestation. We have roaches and all of this as a result of all of this. And it's like overwhelming. 65% of us are senior citizens. They're not taking us out of our units while this work is going on. So imagine in the daytime, you have no place to go during the day, and you've got your drilling. I mean, it gets so bad, you feel like a crazy person because you can't control, you can't talk, you find no place to go in your unit to avoid the noise that's going on and everything else. So there is health issues attached to all of this, and we are going to pay at every level, not only the increase, but because our health will be compromised by all of this, we are going to have increases in health bills. And so all of this is of concern to us. And if we could look at the AIA would tell us a lot. We know without a doubt that there is some real serious problems around people's pockets being filled with kickback money. It's obvious. You can see it and all of that. I'm just throwing it all out there.
No, I think,
it
Ms.
doesn't
Reddick,
have-
you're giving us all of the things that we need to address. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know if Shauna and Mina, but I'd like to, I'll put my number in. I'd like to schedule something with you. It is clear that this issue is not going to wait until the November Housing Committee, meeting, the latter part of November, that we need to be in contact with each other. So I'm going to recommend if there's any other board members that want to join, and I'm saying later this week, no later than this week. I certainly like to be able to present this matter to I know Cicely Harris is on the call, to our executive committee meeting on Wednesday. I know this is not a voting item for Housing Committee, but it is is a matter of urgency. I think you just gave, even the best reason. By the way, my father passed away in October of 2018, and he was there in 67 with 700 Lenox Avenue, apartment 199, until the day he passed. I am well aware of that incredible history. So I'm just saying, Del Senior and others, I know Gregory Baggett has a comment, but I think we need to schedule something this week. I'm willing to gather together anybody else who's willing. Shatik and I will obviously be on that call. Ms. Reddick, anyone that you can bring in. And I think Del Senior's point is well taken. Let's find a way to get someone from that board from Esplanade Gardens on these calls and let them know what we're thinking. Shauna, I'd like for you to.
I think we
I was
also
just
need to
gonna say
get
was I
someone.
could
I'm
possibly
sorry,
get
Shauna.
someone
I
on
think
from
we
the
need to
board
get.
on.
I think we need to get someone from HPD.
And, and I agree, Del Senior, that we need to speak. I don't have any problems. I actually, reaching out directly to, Commissioner Carroll or someone else on the commissioner level. I'm not looking for us to have a conversation. I know enough about HPD to know we don't need a mid-level messenger. We need a policymaker. So I don't, I know enough about that, the hierarchy at HPD. If it's not Commissioner Carroll, then, give us your Deputy Commissioner of Development, give us your Deputy Asset Management, Commissioner, let's bring in the people that can give us the answer. So what I'm saying is that I'll put my number in the chat. Please call me tomorrow and let's just schedule a follow-up call this week. I don't think it can wait. And then I'm going to turn to Shatik, you can unmute. Gregory Baggett had a question.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify something. We want to have them come to the executive committee meeting. We want to have when do we want to do this, Charles?
No, I'm going to have a call tomorrow with Ms. Reddick, and I'm going to see what we can bring, we as a committee chair to the executive committee. I mean, obviously, Ms. Reddick, you're welcome to come to the EC. Shatik, just make sure that Ms. Reddick and anyone else from Esplanade Gardens, it's an open meeting. our executive committee meeting. I'm just saying that it'll take us a minute. I don't think they'll see that by Wednesday we'll have the, the agenda or meeting schedule or doing whatever. We're just going to update the EC on this conversation this evening and the urgency of this matter.
Okay, but the urgency is to have a conversation with someone from HPD. The November 1st is Sunday.
Yeah.
So if we can get that together by Wednesday.
Well, I know we have two representatives. I know you're wearing the housing committee hat, but I believe we have another person from the public advocate's office. And so let's make this happen.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, all right. Ms. Reddick, you have been amazing, and we are very, very grateful. Gregory, before we turn, and we know we have our marching orders, did you still want to ask a question or make a comment?
I mean, as much great information as was shared tonight, I mean, I really am kind of full, but I did have one question I wanted to ask Ms. Reddick.
Yes.
And I was curious if the shareholders in Mitchell Lama Buildings have any vote over assessments or maintenance increases, or do those things happen from the board without shareholder
This
participation?
is from the board without shareholder involvement. The problem that I have is that there should have been assessments in the past. They were not, because assessments will run for a period of time and then removed. That has never been the case here. We have no idea as to what is the actual reasons other than words. There should be numbers. For instance, if Con Ed has gone up by 3%, then I should know that's being passed on to me. Something of that nature should tell us as to how they came up with this 30% and make sense for all of us. Numbers don't lie. That's clear, but don't give me an air of thought. I want to see facts, and that this board fails to do over and over again. In the past, using Co-op City, which is also one of the largest Mitchell Lamas, what they did was they evaluated and asked the shareholders which one in the long run would benefit us, an assessment or an increase. This board, and I believe this from my heart, does not even understand, because most of them have no financial backgrounds whatsoever. And so therefore, whatever is presented to them, both by management and the legal team, they eat it and keep moving. It's not the way to do business. It's not the way to do business. Numbers tell us something. We have no numbers. All we know is we're continuously being slapped with an increase of some nature. It needs to end.
So we know, thank you again, Ms. Reddick. Got to move the agenda. Gregory, thank you for that, comment. I think that's an important point to
Thank
hear.
you,
I want to turn to, because I know she has a time frame on our agenda, just for Delcenia Glover to give the Housing Committee and board members in the community a quick update on what we're doing with our district needs statement, because I know Delcenia has a time frame. And Ms. Reddick, I did put my number in the chat for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Delcenia? You're muted. Shatik, do we need to unmute her? Or
I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. So let me go back to my sheet. So we representatives from over the past several weeks, representatives from several of the community board committees have been meeting weekly on Sundays to prepare our yearly district needs statement, and which includes budgetary items. This year, and I don't know if we did it last year because I wasn't here, but we also did a community survey for what folks in the community and on the board thinks are important things for us to be asking for. And we got about 50 responses, and we included those recommendations where feasible. So a final draft will be presented at the executive committee meeting on Wednesday, and then to the full committee at the November 4th meeting. So the areas that we included in the district needs, we didn't go to every single thing that we work on, but we went with the idea of choosing the things that most reflect what we in the community think are important. Bear with me because I have I'm having some technical difficulties, so the type is very small. And our pressing needs include public health, which includes gun violence, COVID, mental health, substance abuse, and domestic violence. Education, including remote learning resources, capital improvement, staffing shortages, and access to Wi-Fi. We also included, let me scroll down to the next section. We have really substantive, it's a really long document, and we have substantive pieces in each of the categories, but I'm only going to go into detail on the housing. I'm just giving you the outlines of the others. We also looked at multi-generational technology. Then we included transportation issues, parks and recreation, economic development, and housing and land use. For the housing and land use section, our priorities include, I'll give you some bullets, but our overarching sort of view of what the community needs is more affordable housing. That's we consider one of the most pressing needs in the community. We want, one of the things that we were asking for is income targeted housing rather than MIH, because MIH has not been necessarily the best thing for our community because it builds in, MIH includes more luxury housing than it does affordable, and the affordable levels or affordability levels are not deep enough. So specifics are Section 8 vouchers and also project-based affordable project-based Section 8 housing. We also included, I'm really sorry, I'm having technical difficulties and I can't make my type bigger. More supportive housing for seniors and handicap, community income-based AMI as the manner in which we determine what is affordable and what is not. Use of existing housing vacancies for priority permanent housing for homeless families currently living in shelters or temporary housing. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but 40% of the students in the public school system in Central Harlem are living in shelter or housing insecure. That's a huge number. We also are looking at greater tenant protections against displacement, including but not limited to immediate expansion of right to counsel. As you probably know, right to counsel is something that was passed back in 2016, I think it was, which means renters at a certain income level, which is very, very low, somewhere in the 20s, are eligible to have an attorney if their landlord takes them to court for eviction. And we would like to see, it's currently in certain zip codes and we want it immediately expanded permanently. It's already expanded due to COVID, but we want it permanently expanded to all of the zip codes. and also with an increase in the level of income that a person can have in order to take advantage of right to counsel. A moratorium on HDFC foreclosures and lien enforcement, more green spaces for affordable housing developments, and a Central Harlem rezoning study and creation. We've detailed a lot of these pieces out in the narrative, which will be shared with the community and the community board on November the 4th, after we take it to the executive committee on this Wednesday. Are there any questions?
That's thorough, Delcinia, very thorough. This is Mari, just saying, I think I was listening intently for whatever loopholes I could find. I can't find any. That really encompasses very excellently what needs to be done in our community. So
Thank you,
commending
Delcinia. I
whoever
want to
put that
also
together.
acknowledge Karen Dixon's involvement, since we were
Yes.
doing a lot of our things, joint land use, housing and economic development. And Terry Wisdom has been the representative that has also supported matters not just relating to housing, but has been a great input, on other matters. So every committee have been asked to provide information, and you'll begin to start seeing the manifestations, of that. But, we also want to acknowledge Joshua Clinton, who presented at our last meeting, and all of the work that he's been doing and gathering folks together on Sunday afternoon meetings at 1 p.m. And folks have been very intentional. Cicely Harris has been involved. Shatik Mitchell has been involved. So I think and Kevin Bitterman, and I don't know if I forgot any other key persons, but it has been a really, really good team effort, and Delcinia has represented, land use and housing, as well as Terry. And I think, we have some good stuff. For you to say, Mari, that you don't see any loopholes, that means a lot, because you are a discerning individual. Donna, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do.
Can I just throw in one last thing? Just one last thing. My intrepid staffer here, Evie Bienemy, who's sort of like my go-to for HPD stuff. She just reminded me that we didn't include a racial impact study for any land use decisions or rezonings, and that will definitely be in the document. Thank you for that, Evie.
Great, thank you for that.
That's why
Evie,
she works for me.
Donna?
Yes, so that was my point. Part of that racial impact statement was actually, I think, is extremely necessary. Additionally, I didn't hear anything about elevators in the subways for the elderly.
That's actually in the transportation section.
That's on the list
Okay.
in transportation. She was just really giving a snapshot of the other, so when you see the document, and it'll be discussed at the EC, Donna, you'll see, all of the details. She was just giving a snapshot of some of the other things that other committees have covered, and focusing specifically on housing.
No, Charles, thank you. I appreciate that. I was just concerned because being a member of the senior task force, and I know speaking to seniors, that's an issue with them. And I'm happy to hear that it's in the transportation
And let me
section
just
of
say,
it.
I should have mentioned her, Donna. Deborah Gilliard has been really a major contributor to the district needs pieces. And yes, she's spoken about everything that you can think of that involves seniors. Seniors in education, seniors in healthcare, seniors in housing, seniors in transportation. I mean, even to the extent of talking about the issues of seniors crossing streets, with bike lanes and other things there, and the cars speeding up and down, no police enforcement, the number of seniors who have been being hit by, bikes and cars and other things. Deborah has been on it. Am I correct, Delcinia and Karen? She's been all on top of that. So you're going to see a lot of stuff in there for seniors.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Delcinia. That was great.
I just want to move things along.
Excuse me,
Terry,
Charles,
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing, and that may be in there. And I know we talked about it in some other meetings, but there are a lot of uneven sidewalks, particularly in Harlem, and many seniors and other people have fallen and been seriously hurt. So that is like an extreme situation. It's not one person. I think if you did a study, many people have fallen and really had a rough time because
So
of the
Shatik, make a note
uneven
of that
sidewalk.
and just make sure that we are referencing that point in our final versions. Okay, so again, want to move the, the agenda along. I put in something about NYCHA because I believe that this committee has not, and really paid as close attention to NYCHA as we need to. So I don't want a lengthy conversation, today, but I'd like for committee members and board members, and I've spoken to Cicely and others, about this, that we really, really consider the necessity of being more intentional about what's happening in NYCHA, what's happening with GRAD, and what's happening with PACT, and what's happening with, the articles that we read every day about lead paint, and other, poor conditions. And, we know that that's the essence of multi-generational living, or in NYCHA, developments, which leads to domestic violence and leads to all kinds of, other kinds of things. Any of us who live in close proximity to our housing developments, also known pejoratively, I think, as projects, that we know that many people are just spending most of their time outside. I mean, I know in my developments near me, it's 24/7 because, it's just probably difficult in COVID-19 for them to really deal with it. So I'm going to say for next month's meeting, I'd really like for committee members to really think about how we can be a little bit more attentive and intentional about NYCHA. I'm even thinking that we may want to consider a subcommittee, just on, NYCHA alone, because it's that broad and it's that involved. And so I really just wanted to throw that out there, not to have any conversation about it, but just to say, let's be on the alert and let's bring some ideas to next month's meeting. Any comments from board members on that?
I did put a paragraph in the district needs statement about NYCHA. I didn't read through it here, but that's very much on the radar. In my professional job, we're doing a lot of work with NYCHA right now, particularly with the information that just came out a few days ago about the lead. It's triple the number that they certified back in 2018. And we know that any levels of lead are unhealthy and unsafe. And this is in apartments where children 6 and under live. We're doing some work on that right now at the Public Advocate's Office because it's criminal. But yeah, I will definitely be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, we need to really just, I just in thinking, I know we used to have an HDFC subcommittee. I'm just thinking with everything that's happening with NYCHA, so many moving parts, let's bring our ideas to next month's meeting and how we can be a little bit more attentive, a lot more attentive and more intentional about what's happening within NYCHA. So we actually have one person who's been very patient, who would like to make a presentation, to us. I'm going to move to, by the way, before we go, anybody want to share any old business before we get to his presentation, which Craig said will be part of new business? Any old business? So Craig, introduce yourself. Let them know why you're here tonight. You presented to us previously, but let us know, you said you have a new project that you wanted to, apprise the committee on.
That's right. And I'd like to introduce Jericho Project CEO, Tori Lyon. She's on the call.
Welcome, Tori.
Hi. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting us. I've really enjoyed the meeting. Mr. Powell, you run a really good meeting, and I've really been interested to hear all of the comments. So we have we don't even need to do the PowerPoint because I realize it's already just at 8 o'clock. Jericho has been in the Central Harlem community for almost 30 years. We operate a permanent supportive housing residence at 2013 Adam Clayton Powell on the corner of 121st Street. That project is 30 years old. It's undergone a number of renovations over the year into 56 formerly homeless individuals. And we are doing a major renovation. And we are looking, we're well along in our plans, and we're looking at various financing sources. Before COVID, we were planning to just go to HPD. And as you know, their budget was set. Some of it has been restored. So we're hopeful that we can still be in their pipeline. But we're also going to New York State. That's it. Yeah. We're also going to New York State to apply for some capital funding as well. So, you know, this building has been a part of the community for a really long time. It's been through many changes over the years. The neighborhood has been through many changes, as you know. And so we're looking for a mixture of government and private funding to keep it as supportive housing. And as part of the renovation, we will be signing a new 30-year regulatory agreement. So that, you know, guarantees that the project will be affordable for another 30 years. And like the other project you were talking about earlier, we do have project-based Section 8 vouchers there through NYCHA. And Craig, I need you to add anything that I might have missed.
Just to echo, you know, what Tori was saying, the proposed work is going to be a moderate rehabilitation. So all new kitchens, bathrooms, replacement of windows and the storefronts, maintenance work to the facades and to the existing fire escapes, new common spaces, laundry facilities, and an exercise room. So really improving the quality of life of the existing tenants. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
We're not increasing the number of units. We're just reconfiguring.
And can you guys just tell us a little bit about your supported housing? Who are you targeting?
So this is what's considered in New York City like a general population supportive housing residence. So, you know, supportive housing, as you know, is targeted to individuals or families in the shelter system who have an identified need for social services. So this building only serves single individuals because it's a single room occupancy. So we have folks who have histories of mental illness, substance use disorders, primarily, sometimes both. And we have 24-hour on-site staff. We have case managers, we have care counselors, we have a healthcare coordinator. We provide a number of holistic services to really wrap around services to meet any need that our clients have. We do benefits counseling. So, you know, we really provide like full service on-site services. And we've been doing it for almost 30 years at that same location.
Any questions from, and by the way, Tori, and we'd like to have you back. I knew that time would probably not allow us to do a full presentation, but I just want to open it up to see if there are any questions from housing committee members or board members or community, you know, members. And again, if time permits for you guys, you know, to come back and do a more detailed presentation in our November meeting.
Yeah.
We would love to.
One thing I stressed is that this is going to be a renovation with tenants in place. So we won't be, you know, relocating anybody.
Hi, this is Mari Moss. I had a couple questions. You said you had 56 that you're serving right now. How many units do you have total?
So right now, we have 48 units, and because we have some double rooms, but what we're doing with the renovation is we're gonna get rid of the double rooms and add some units to the ground floor. So it's still gonna be 56, like people, but it's gonna, right now it's 48 units, but it's gonna be 56 separate units going forward. So we won't have any like shared situations.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the current double units.
Okay, and then how do people find out about your program, or how do they get notifications, or how does the word get out about how to get your services?
So we get all of our referrals from the Department of Social Services, Department of Homeless Services, like a coordinated assessment program or process. It's called CAPS, Coordinated Assessment. I can't remember what it's for, sorry. But so we're working with people who are in the shelter who qualify for supportive housing. So they have to undergo like a psychological evaluation and be determined to qualify for supportive housing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Reddick, you had a question?
Yeah, this is on 7th Avenue, this building?
Yes, and 121st.
Okay, is this the, I guess, supportive housing that has been there all of these years that you're now renovating again? And you're going to hold the same type of population as you had before? Is that the idea?
That's correct.
So the majority of them would be men, if I'm not mistaken, or is it a mixed combination within this?
No, it's actually 50-50 men and women.
Men and women. Single? No children?
Yeah.
No children.
No children. Okay.
So I think, Craig and Tori, what would be helpful, going to one of Mari's points, it's helpful for you guys to share with us, and come and report back to us on the progress of things. But to get to everyone's, concerns and points, we always like to know, is there a resource that's available to us in this district that we might be able to, we get constituents, who are in need. So we're hoping that this could be an informational pipeline and also a referral pipeline. So please send us all of your information to our District Officer Shatik Mitchell, so that we can stay, apprised as to how things are going and how the community responds. So for example, we're always sensitive to the fact that with any form of housing and with renovations, taking place, what's the community impact? So please share with us by the time you come back next month, your outreach to your neighbors, and to others, and as to what you're contemplating and planning, and what your construction will be. And we're always concerned about noise. Ms. Reddick was just talking about what some of the issues are when you begin to start doing these renovations with tenants in place. It sometimes can be a horrendous experience, for them, just rodent infestation and things of that sort, noise, dust. We're a community that deals with lots of asthma. So I don't know if there'll be anything that we need to be concerned about, but certainly noise pollution, air pollution, and anything, even with internal renovations, we're concerned. So please share that information with us when you come back in November.
Will do.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and one last thing, if I can add, Charles, we're really committed to using minority-owned businesses from the local community. So if you know any contractors, subcontractors, we already have a Black-owned architecture firm that we're working with, who they've been amazing to work with. So we're really looking to leverage local resources.
No, that is very, very important for you to say that. It's all about employment, and it's certainly about making sure that many of our minority businesses are eligible and being considered, for these things. So yes, I'm going to ask that you give any information about that from Shatik, and we'll absolutely help facilitate identifying, you know, what we think are some of our eligible candidates, you know, that we'd love to see if they can participate in
Yeah,
this
I really want
project.
you to hold us accountable for that as well, so.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a
Donna?
question, Charles. My question is, can you give us also what percentage of the people that are currently living there were previously Ward 10 residents? Because you are getting this, the clientele from Department of Department of Homelessness and HRA. So I'm thinking that I though it's a wonderful service and it's actually in our community and I really appreciate that, I also want to know what percentage of people that were prior living in this community are currently returning to this community. That's a question I have.
Okay,
So if you can provide that.
I will do my best to answer that. You know, I can check in our healthcare records if we have their the zip code where they're coming from, but this was a project that is like 30 years old. But I think I can try to get you a snapshot at least. If that's okay.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. I appreciate that.
Donna's an excellent point. What we find all times, and that's a land use issue, and it's also a housing issue. And certainly, you know, Donna's pointing out a very good point. We are asked sometimes to support projects and programs, you know, which unfortunately does not benefit people from our district. So thank you for that, Donna. That's a great point. And Tori, you know, we look forward to getting that information. Any final comments on this before we actually adjourn this wonderful meeting? So I just want to thank.
Charles, I'm just putting my email address in the chat. If you know anybody who's homeless and needs supportive housing, please feel free to contact me. If we can't help them on Adam Clayton Powell, we may have other ways to help them.
I'm going to call, you know, put your number in there, or even if it's in the private chat thing, because I have someone I need to call you about tomorrow. So yes, thank you for that. So I just wanted to thank everyone who's been on this, you know, on this call. I think it's been a great call. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules, everyone. You know, we thank you, Shauna Harmon-Goff, you know, we thank you, Mina White, you know, we thank you, you know, certainly Ms. Reddick, you gave us, you know, our marching orders and extremely inspiring. Gregory Baggett, you're always on the calls. Thank you so much. And for those, you know, who are on my, you know, committee, you know, thanks for this. We got some work to do, and that means this week. And of course, I'll be presenting an outline of what we're thinking about doing. Already Delcenia Glover and I have exchanged, you know, in the chat who we're reaching out to at HPD on the commissioner level, and we'll be on that tomorrow. So unless there is something further, Craig and Tori, thank you so much for presenting this evening as well. I see your information in the chat. So unless there's something else, I'm going to ask for a motion for us to adjourn.
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so, you know, without further ado, the meeting is formally adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Cheryl Douglas, I always see you on these meetings. Cheryl and I have known each other for a very, very long time. You know, so glad to see you, darling. You don't look like you've aged a day, you know.
Oh, thank you.
All right, love you all, and
Okay.
God bless you. And have a wonderful evening.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Good evening. Have a nice night.
Have a good night. Thank you.